So hey there everyone, and welcome to the channel. As always, thanks for stopping by and hanging out for a few. My name is Rich Charpentier. I'm the channel host, and normally here we're talking about doing drone work, building your own small drone business. Also, lots of things about imaging and digital imaging and editing. And today we're picking up on a video that I started. The part one of the video was actually using the Theta Z1 in HDR mode, and then doing some editing with Lightroom and with Affinity Photo. On this video that you're seeing, so I'm recording these videos back to back, but I'm spacing them out for you so that you don't have to sit down and watch them all at once. So in the last video, we imported a tour of a home that we're looking at for rental property. So looking at the studio room right now, so you probably already saw that in the other video. If you haven't seen that other video yet, up in the right-hand corner, you'll see an info button, and you can go watch that video first before you watch this one. So we're going to be talking about editing these images with actually the images from the Theta Z1 and from its HDR mode. And we're going to take a quick look at using Photoshop. So I'm in Lightroom right now. I've done the adjustments I wanted to. So this video is going to be a lot shorter than the last one. Last one was 35 minutes because I took you through the whole process. But I ran into a problem doing a live 360 view on Photoshop that I want to share with you, and I want you to check it out too. And what I found out online so far is that other people are having the problem. It has nothing to do with the Theta Z1. It's 360s in general on Photoshop has a bit of an issue. So in the last video, I actually exported these JPEGs. So I exported 7 JPEGs and popped them into a folder, and then I dragged each one of those images into Affinity Photo to use its live 360 projection editing mode, which is really cool. Normally what I've done is I've either used Pano 2 VR on my own desktop, or I've uploaded my 360s to Kula to take a look at whether or not they looked okay for doing a tour. Now, all of the images that you're seeing in here, these are not heavily edited or anything. They're not set up for a realtor or any other type of client. It was just a couple of shots for a quick run through for our own reference at the house we were looking at. And also I wanted to be able to use these images for a couple of tutorials for you on this channel. So it's fun whenever I go out. I've got some kind of camera with me just in case if we get something that we can have a learning experience with. So I'm going to take a look at this first one. That's the potential new studio, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to get that over into Photoshop. So all I did on screen here in Lightroom was I did a right click. I went over to Edit In, and I went over to Edit in Adobe Photoshop 2021. So I've been finding some pretty cool features in Photoshop 2021. And one of my options is to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. Let's go ahead and let's say that we want to do that. So we're going to make a copy, and Lightroom's going to do that for me. And then it's going to launch Photoshop for me. So this should take a moment. There's the happy little pinwheel of doom. So that means that something's going on for us. And there we go. Photoshop is now popping up. Now, if you've watched the last video of the edits that we've done in Affinity Photo, you know that I went up and did a new layer and then went to their 360 view. What you do here in Photoshop, up on 3D, we have an option for Spherical Panorama. So we could import a panorama, or we could do a new panorama layer from the selected layer that I have right now. So that's the one we're going to do, because we've already brought this over from Lightroom. And you're about to see the problem I was running into. So I'm going to click on New Panorama Layer. So Lightroom has pushed this over to Photoshop. And now we're going to use Photoshop to do some editing, like getting rid of the feet from the monopod. That's what I want to do here. And in the last videos, you saw that over and over again in Affinity Photo. So we're just waiting for it to get to the 360 view, and aha, here we go. You are seeing the problem that I was seeing. So I'm not even worried about editing this right now. Look at the color quality in here. The brightness has just become dismal. It's darkened this down. This is a really strange thing. Now, when I did this with Affinity Photo, the colors and the brightness looked really good to me. But for some reason, it's knocked down the brightness in this pretty massively, and there's been some color change as well. So there's part of my monopod right there, but I really don't care to edit this right now with this amount of darkness. So this is not looking good. And over on my other screen, it's even looking darker. So it looks really, in some parts, fairly underexposed here. So not a good look at all. So I don't even want to start editing on this and bringing this back in because it's definitely problematic. But just like Affinity Photo, I could go in here and correct this. I could also get myself out of that mode. So that spherical panorama, I could actually take myself out of it and back into the regular mode. But you know what? This is so troubling with how dark it got. I really don't even want to pull this one back in. And before we go any further with this, I'm going to just go ahead and close this one. Don't save it. Let's go back down to Lightroom again really fast. Look at how bright this is. And let's throw that into Photoshop one more time. So we're just going to go with that edit again. And here we are in Photoshop. So the brightness is looking good. But when we went to that spherical panorama, that really did something wrong to us here. So I'm not quite sure what's happening. I could go in, since we're in here, and I could brush this out. Let's see here. If I go over onto, let's use the spot healing brush. And if I just brushed in here, I'm getting rid of that base at least. So there we go, that's gone. So there's one way to do it, because I've had multiple people ask me, hey, Rich, I noticed on some of your 360s that you've got the tripod legs or something. And there are a couple ways to deal with it. One, of course, is to use that healing brush, and that's going to fix that up real nice. But once again, if we go to that 3D and down to spherical panorama, we're going to watch this thing really darken down. So let's do that one more time, just so that you get the idea of this. And then we're going to talk about it a little more. So just waiting on Photoshop to catch up. Once again, I don't have a super old iMac or anything, but all it takes is a couple of applications being up, especially imaging applications. Once again, there we go. All right, we did get rid of those feet, so that looks a lot better. But this is not looking right. This is looking really, really dark to me. So not satisfactory at all. I'm going to go ahead and close it. I'm not even going to take the moment to re-import that, because I'm going to minimize Photoshop. I'm going to minimize Lightroom, and we're going to grab my Chrome browser here. So I went looking around to see what's going on with this problem and what's up. After Photoshop update, so this is a while ago. This person actually wrote their post October 30th of 2018, and they described this problem to a T. So when they create a new spherical panorama object, the colors of the newly created spherical map are different from the original, and you saw that pretty clearly, I'm sure. It looks like it changes the gamma to do a darker one. Also, the quality of the preview is very low. So that was, CC 20, and now we're in the newest version of 2021, and I'm still experiencing this. And so the interesting thing here is this is an ongoing thread. It's not a big thread because I don't think a lot of people are doing this. But so another person in June of 2020 said, I had this similar issue, contacted support. They watched on my machine. They were able to reproduce it. Told me it's because of the color spaces and its expected behavior. I was advised to export the file from Lightroom to a JPEG first and then open it in Photoshop. Okay, so here's a potential solution, but I already have that answer too, because I tested that out and I was very unhappy. I'm going to minimize this, and I'm just going to grab another screen over off screen, and let's find that one. So here's our little full-sized panos again. There's one of the JPEGs, so I'm just going to drag that JPEG into Photoshop because I'm going to test out that solution that was offered by their support people. So there we go. And I just dragged it on there. Oh, look, same image, but now it's from an outside folder. And let's go up to that spherical again and do that new panorama layer from the selected layer. So according to their support, All right, that's looking a little better here now. So isn't that kind of strange that this is definitely looking a little better, a little brighter? It still darkened it down a bit on me for my taste, but definitely looking a little better than that darkened down one. One of the other things that I have found is that DNGs, if you're taking a DNG in, those seem to do all right. They don't get beat up as much. So from Lightroom, I took one of my images and I exported as a DNG. So we didn't change it to a JPEG or anything. And I'm just going to move this off screen again. I'm going to drag that into Photoshop again. And then we'll see here. So Photoshop's probably thinking about this one. There we go. And let me see. Oops, I opened Lightroom Classic by mistake. So this is a completely different image, but it is a DNG that I exported, and this is close to the colors that I had gotten from Lightroom as well when I did my edits in Lightroom. So dragging a DNG in is another way, but launching from Lightroom and sending a JPEG or even a TIFF, I've tried this with TIFFs as well, and it's darkened things down. I'm going to cancel out of this here, and I just want to show you one more. So we're going to go back into Lightroom. We're going to hit the G key. I'm just scrolling up a little bit here, and let's take a look. So this is another image, not from the walkthrough of the potential rental house for us, but another image from where we are right now. And I'm just going to right click on that. I'm going to go into Edit in Photoshop 2021. And while we're doing that, so let me see, I'm going to edit the original of this one because I've already got a second copy. And so it's popping it open, and there we go. So that brightness is looking about right. Looking over on the other screen, it does look a little darker, a little dimmer. So thinking of other screens, maybe I want to bump this one up a little more, right? Okay, let's go up to that 3D. Let's go down to the Spherical Panorama, and let's go ahead and use New Panorama Layer. So once again, I was really excited learning that I could, do kind of a live view of the 360s in both Affinity and Photoshop. And I'd done it with Photoshop before, but I was still experiencing this problem and didn't dig into it in a big way. But whoa, look at this. Look at how darkened down. So if you thought, and looking on the other screen, it's even worse. So this is terrible. So right now I'm thinking, boy, I need to edit this completely here. But when we get it on Kula or we pull the same thing up on Affinity Photo, we're not having this massive darkening drop. So I'm not quite sure what the solution is yet. If you have experienced this and you know a workaround, please make sure to leave a comment below for both myself and for the other people who are subscribed to the channel, because I'm sure they'll be interested as well. Now, we saw that explanation. I want to pull that back up. So once again, they said they had the same issue, contacted support, and he said the color spaces or something were different. My color spaces are the same for Lightroom and Photoshop, so not quite sure. He was advised to export the file from Lightroom to a JPEG and then open Photoshop, and then he says useless. There's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of tools in Photoshop. I mean, you can't know all the tools in Photoshop. To be really honest. I mean, you can do 3D visualization. I can take OBJ files from 3D models from my drone and pull them into Photoshop and view them and manipulate them. There are just so many tools that even some of the highest end experts with Photoshop don't know all the features. And they keep adding to those tools, which is amazing. So another person said that I found if you select in Bridge, right click, and open it in Camera Raw, or open it as an object, a Photoshop object. So I tested that out too, and I still had these problems. Then when it opens, click open, then do everything as normal in Photoshop. So let's go ahead and do this one too. If you're getting bored, go ahead and drop off. But we might as well try a couple things together. We're all here together. So I'm just going to hit my G key. I'm going to go back down to this one. And I'm going to right click, and I'm going to do an edit in. And I'm going to do this as an edit, open as a smart object, okay? So opening as a smart object gives us access to our raw editor, the camera raw editor in Photoshop. So I just want to see when we open it as a smart object if maybe we're going to have a little more luck. So we're just waiting on Photoshop. Is Photoshop deeply thinking right now? I think it is. There we go. So I open this and you can tell that this is a object instead because of this little icon down here on our layer. This strange little paper icon here says to me, so this little icon right in here says that this is a smart object. And so I can do more with smart objects, like I can double click on it and get my camera raw editor up here. So that's pretty interesting because maybe I could do a little more in the way of corrections. So let's just grabbing that eyedropper tool and I'm dropping it over there. And once, you know, it did drop the temperature a little bit. So let's say we're going to go with that. So we updated our smart object a little bit. If you'd like to know more about Photoshop with some basic classes, let me know as well. We can do some tutorials here and do the basics because, like I said, there is a lot to Photoshop. But one of my big questions now, actually, before we even try it out, let's go grab our little healing tool, that spot healing brush. And oh, look, it doesn't want to let me use that because this is an object. So I'd have to convert this to a regular layer instead. So it's not going to let me do that edit since it's a smart object. Okay, so I'm not even going to mess with that one. Let's go to the 3D. Let's go to the new panorama from the layer and see if doing it as a smart object helped us or not. Excitedly waiting, right? Sorry, we'll be looking for a faster machine here into 2021, I promise. So there we go. And once again, it's darkened things down. So, you know, doing it as a smart object was definitely not the way. And let's go ahead and close that. Don't save. And let's look at that that other commenter's suggestion one more time. So they said they're doing it from Bridge, right click and open in Camera Raw. Then when it opens, well, it looks to me like the one explanation that did work for us that we just demonstrated a few minutes ago was exporting from Lightroom and then opening it in Photoshop. So taking one of those Lightroom exports and then going in is the right way to go at it. So I'm going to, let's go ahead and just close Lightroom here. And we're going to go back to Photoshop and we'll pick one more image just because we can. So let's grab one more image in here. And let's go ahead and grab this one. And so this was exported from Lightroom, turned into a JPEG. So there we go. That's the main room. It was exported from Lightroom, put into a folder for uploading to Kula afterward. And let's go ahead and go back up here once more. New panorama from the selected. And let's see what we get here. All right, this is definitely looking a lot better. So it seems like something is happening if we're launching from Lightroom into Photoshop and then we turn this feature on. So that's a big think right there. You know, what's happening with that? And let's, you know, while we're looking at this, can we do some corrections in that live preview? So I'm just grabbing that brush and I'm popping that right there. Yep, I took the door handle right off of this little cupboard. Let's go ahead and get rid of the thermostat and let's not have power outlets in this house. We don't want power outlets in this house. We're going rustic here. So it looks like that suggestion on the users forums of exporting out of Lightroom into a folder and then pulling those JPEGs in is going to allow us to do some of those corrections. So that's great. I'm glad that we found that out. I'm going to go back to my arrow key now and I can still work around in here. So in the last video and this video, you've seen how we can actually look around our 360s and make corrections. We've also gotten kind of past an issue that I was having with Photoshop when I was launching from Lightroom into Photoshop for TIFFs and JPEGs. It was not presenting this 360 view as nicely. And so it seems to me that bringing it in for those final touches into Photoshop is fine, but most likely you're going to want to export from Lightroom. Like I said, down in the comments below, if you've got a solution to this weirdness, please leave us a comment, because I'm sure everybody else on channel will be interested as well. All right, we're going to cut this one off so that we don't do a whole 35-minute thing like the last one. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next video. Don't forget, on Mondays, every Monday at 8 Pacific time during the summer and 8 Mountain time during the winter, we do a live stream, usually about drones or editing or 360s or other imaging issues and interests. So if you've got any kind of things you'd like to see on a live stream or future videos, drop me a note, let me know, and we'll be happy to talk about it. By the way, everything in this one was shot with the Ricoh Theta Z1, which I'm absolutely a huge fan of, and it was definitely a worthwhile purchase this year. So if you're interested in doing really great 360 stills, I think the Ricoh Theta Z1 is a fantastic option. If you're looking to do 360 video, the Theta Z1 is not so hot at the video side. But if you're looking to do interiors and exteriors for real estate or other similar applications, I think the Theta Z1 is a great option for you. And as I said before, you know, Photoshop, Lightroom, Affinity Photo, there's a lot of editors out there. If you're doing drone work, you're going to have an interest in video editing and in photography editing. Don't shortchange yourself. Make sure you've got the tools that you need to get the job done every time. All right, we'll see you in the next upcoming video, everyone. Have an awesome week.